Hello, and welcome to another edition of The Way at Work. Boy, we've got a lot of things to talk about today. From resident satisfaction, we're going to talk a little bit about the care guide. We'll talk about self-inspections, and we'll finish up with the capital needs assessments that we are trying to get done. So to begin, I'd like to talk about resident satisfaction. To set this up, I'd like to go back to our core values. Our core values include professionalism, leadership, mission, and compassion. But if you really pull that apart, we're striving to be excellent, we're trying to be leaders in our field, we're serving God, and we're truly caring about the people that we serve. Well, how are we doing with that? Well, some time ago we did a survey. It's been probably a year and a half ago now, and that survey was sent out to 20% of our properties. And the results can be good and bad. This graph shows the results of that survey. Each bar represents how residents at each property rated us from a satisfaction perspective. Specifically, if you pull it apart, it's how compassionate and respectful they think our management is. Well, you can see that we've got some 72% of all of our properties that rate us an 80% or above. But what's troubling is we have 28% of our properties that are rating us a C, D, or an F. So obviously, we want to improve resident satisfaction. We really don't want scores of C, D, and F. Well, the way we go about doing that is we have to treat each other and our residents with compassion and respect. And it's not just in our action, it's from our heart. They need to feel that we really care about them. We're going to continue to monitor our results. And this year, we plan to do resident surveys to 100% of our properties. Some of them will be through the Service Coordination Rascal Survey, and some of them will be through a more detailed survey called CEL, or CEL. But everybody will receive a survey this year. We shouldn't look at that survey and think that it's going to be judgmental. When we get the results back, it's a great benchmark, it's great feedback, and everybody will look at their results and try and figure out a way to where we can improve on those results. I know we can do it. Well, now I would like to move to a deeper discussion about how we take on more responsibility for our residents' health and well-being. With that, I've invited Shelley Gonzalez from National Church Residences of Telegraph Road to join us to talk a little bit about her experience. She's a service coordinator there at the property. Hi, Shelley.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing great. Well, Shelley, you've got the whole care guide that I'm sure that you're involved with. I think your property has 44 units. But
Correct.
Tell us a little bit about the care guide. What does that mean to you?
Well, Care Guide has been a really useful tool for assessing the residents. We're able to talk to them about their needs, where they may have some trouble, what services they're already receiving, and informal supports like family. And then we're able to identify those gaps that are there and help bring services in to meet those. So it's been a really helpful tool.
So out of the 44 residents that you've got there, how many of you actually inputted into the care guide?
Right about 40.
About 40. So you're in the home stretch of being done with at least the first phase of care guide.
Absolutely.
So tell me, what have you learned from that so far with all the data that you've collected?
Well, we've learned that my biggest health issue in the building is high blood pressure. Chronic pain and diabetes are also some really big hitters here. So we've been able to bring in some programs that are specifically targeting helping people lower that blood pressure and track it and monitor it to just make sure that their numbers are where they're supposed to be.
Now, you also know how many people are vulnerable there, correct?
Correct, yes.
And when you get all this information about your vulnerable residents and even the ones that aren't vulnerable, there are preferred provider agreements that we take. Have you done any of those yet?
Yes, I do. I've got one preferred provider agreement right now.
Can you tell us what that preferred provider does at your property?
Yeah, they've been awesome. First of all, they have their own services they provide. So they have skilled services like helping people with bathing, food preparation, physical therapy, occupational therapy, nursing. They've also got chore worker services, so people who might need some help cleaning their house, having someone go to the store to pick up groceries, things like that. And then in addition to that, they've helped us network with other providers. So because of my relationship with my preferred provider, I also have a visiting doctor, podiatrist, and optometrist that's able to come into the building to work with the residents.
Wow, it sounds like you're really doing a great job bringing services in to all the residents. Can you tell us how many of those residents are actually taking advantage of the services coming in? Do you find hesitancy, or do you feel like that they're really grabbing a hold and taking advantage?
It's new. So I want to say we've got about 38% of our residents who have engaged with those services. So we're still kind of introducing residents to some of those services and some of those companies, building those relationships, building that trust, because you're having residents agree to let somebody come in and assist them with some of their personal basic needs. But I've got a lot of people who are getting services for the first time, who are reaching out and really getting those needs filled by some of these vendors.
So we talk about outcomes when it comes to this whole initiative.
What I tell people when I break down what my job is, the very core of it, is I tell people I want to decrease hospitalizations, I want to decrease 911 calls, I want to decrease falls, and I need to keep people living safely and independently in their home. So at the end of the day, that is what we're pushing for, keeping people living independently, safely, getting those needs met.
Wow, that is well said. And so when it comes to those outcomes of reducing 911 calls and rehospitalizations, have you been able to move the meter on that yet, or is it a little bit too early?
It's a little too soon. I don't have any statistics yet for that. What I do know is what I see, and what I see are people going to those wellness events, people getting their blood pressure checked every week. So I don't have those statistics yet to back it up, but what I am observing every day by being here, I believe we've been able to make a difference in the lives of a number of our residents.
My guess is when it comes to Shelley, you're going to figure out how to get those outcomes down. I get that feeling from you.
Absolutely.
Well, Shelley, I really appreciate the time that you've spent with us today. It's important to know that, Shelley's property is not in Central Ohio. It's in an area to where we can't provide those services that Shelley is talking about. She's had to reach out into the community to find the services, to generate the preferred provider agreement. And you're really making a difference, Shelley, and I really appreciate the time and your leadership over there to get it done.
Well, thank you so much.
Thanks very much, Shelley. Well, the next topic we'd like to talk about is property self-inspections. We developed a series of these property self-inspections a few years ago. It was done so that we would have a more credible, more point-to-point method of looking at a property to try and help identify maintenance issues and to also help reduce the insurance liabilities that we've got at the property. And to talk a little bit about this whole program, we've brought in Matt McGuire. How you doing, Matt?
Good, Steve. Good morning. Thanks.
Well, we've got, 3 property self-inspections, correct?
We do.
Well, what are those?
Well, there's we've created the program is essentially 3 different inspections, has 3 different forms to help the manager and the maintenance tech work through each one of those inspections. The first inspection is a common area inspection and an exterior of the building inspection. And that is to be done monthly. The second inspection is also common areas and exteriors, and that's to be done annually. And it's a more detailed inspection, and it's actually a great inspection for a pre-REAC inspection.
Great.
The third inspection is a unit inspection, and that has all the items in it that the inspector needs to look at in every one of the units. And again, that is an annual inspection, and that's to be done in each unit of the building every year.
Fantastic. And then I know once the inspection's done, they get put into a filing protocol there at the property, and I think there are 4 files there that they should have in their central file system at the property.
Correct. Essentially, each one of those folders is to contain the inspection, whichever type of folder, or I'm sorry, whichever type of inspection goes into the individual folders. And it also is to track whether all the deficiencies have been corrected.
Yeah, so I think you basically have two folders for common area. One is a folder that has deficiencies and the other one doesn't, and then there's another one for the tenant units that are the same thing.
That's correct.
Two of them, and all four of these are in the PPG to where the properties can read about it.
Everything's in the PPG.
So my question to you, Matt, is that how do we know that the property self-inspections are actually getting done?
Right, the most important thing, right?
Yeah.
That's done through the quarterly visits to the site by the RPL. So essentially, it's the RPL's responsibility to review those files and to make sure that those inspections have been done, and also that they've been completed, and then all that information is the results of those reviews are recorded in the PAC.
Great, and so the property audit checklist, we have reports that generate from that, and we can then easily see whether properties are on target or not.
Correct. That's
Well,
it.
fantastic. I guess I just want to end by telling the properties that this is really important stuff, trying to get these self-inspections done. Everything that you should be looking at is included in those self-inspections, and I encourage all the properties to try and make sure that those inspections are done when they're supposed to be done. Thank you so much, Matt, for your
Steve.
time.
Thanks so much.
Well, the next thing that we'd like to talk about are capital needs assessments. Now, for those of you that might not be aware of what a capital needs assessment is, it's basically a report where we send a third party to your property and they look at all the different components of your property, whether it's roof, windows, walls, common area, resident units, and they try and decide when should certain capital repairs be completed, what year, and how much should we allocate to that particular repair. Well, we feel like that we need to update those capital needs assessments so that we can make sure that properties have enough money in their reserves to get you through another 10 to 15 year run. With that, I've invited Alan Maletti to join us. He is sort of heading up this particular initiative to get it done for us. Welcome, Alan.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks for having me.
Alan, can you tell us a little bit about just the goals that you've got for this? How many of them do you think we need to do, and how do you think we're going to roll it out, and by when?
Sure. Well, our goal here is to have a capital needs assessment done for every property every 5 years. So we've done a lot in the past. We probably have about 100 more, a little more maybe, to get done here in the future. Probably in the next year, we'd like to have them all wrapped up. And so we'll be putting together a pretty tight schedule with Dominion, the provider. That'll all be communicated to Property Management Group, and we're going to start turning the crank here very soon, within 30 days.
And so as you go through this reporting and analysis of the property, obviously the property is going to have some input into this because they know capital needs that are really important to them. How do you go about getting that input?
Well, sure. Dominion will first, visit the site, do their inspection. We'll get some initial input from the Property Management Group then, and then before we ever have a final report done, we'll get a draft, which I'll send to the regional director and the property manager, and just, ask them for any input, any things that were maybe missed in that report, that way we can make sure we're touching all the bases there.
Communication will be critical in this whole thing, and so I'm sure that you're going to be communicating at a high level with the properties to tell them when and what you need from them and that sort of thing. I will say this, that at the end of the day, when you get the capital needs report back, there are going to be some properties where there's not enough money in the reserves to take us through another 10 to 15 year run. We'll have to think about how we go about addressing those different properties. But there are a group of properties that we refer to as PRACs, and any of those PRACs that you manage today, those PRACs are actually eligible for budget-based rent increases. So if there is a shortage, you can literally go to HUD and you can ask for that budget-based rent increase, and we're going to be actively working through you to try and pursue that. Now, Alan, what do the properties get to help them with that budget-based rent increase? Are they just on their own, or is there something that you're giving them to arm them?
No, we have several tools we're putting in place. Basically, you'll get a template that'll have a funding schedule, which can in turn determine what the potential rent increase is going to be that you would need to ask for. And sometimes it'll be small based on the capital needs. Sometimes it'll be significant if the capital needs needed in the first 1 to 3 years are large. So we'll just have to work through that, and I'll help you in making sure you have what you need to do that.
Sounds like you're going to have a full package for them to where they can almost print the thing out and it'll be ready to give to HUD for that request.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, fantastic. Alan, thank you so much for this information. I hope this all goes well for you. I'm sure that it will. But I really appreciate your time here with us today.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate it.
Thanks. Well, that sort of wraps up this issue of The Way at Work. I hope that you all have a blessed day, and I hope that our residents and really everybody that we touch can see God's light shining through you. Thanks again.